Thank you so much for inviting me to moderate your candidate forum. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose individual candidates or political parties. We do, however, work to educate the voting public and to increase the number of people who vote. Your forums are very much in the spirit of voter education, and we sincerely thank the candidates who are participating here tonight to make their views known and to answer their voters' questions. So we'll begin with the opening statements. We'll let the candidates each introduce themselves to you with a 2-minute opening statement, and then we're going to move to questions that have been submitted in advance by the voters. Some of the candidates cannot be here tonight, but they have submitted statements that we will read in their absence. So we're thanking Carol for reading these. As your moderator and timekeeper, I will hold up a yellow paddle when a candidate has 30 seconds left and a red paddle when the time is up. We are going to go in alphabetical order for the opening statements. So for this, for wards 1 through 3, the order is going to be Mr. Rick Dowd, Tyler Govea, Trish Clee, I think, Daniel Richardson, who will have a statement, isn't here, Jan Schmidt, and Don Scott with a statement. So straight up alpha for this, and we'll change it up when it comes time for questions and closing statements. So Rick Dowd, would you start us off, please?
Certainly. Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and the library for sponsoring this candidates night. I'm Rick Dowd. I'm the current Ward 2 Alderman, seeking a 6th term in that position. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Nashua and a former naval officer who served as a qualified person on nuclear submarines and on surface warfare ships as a surface warfare officer. I am also retired from BAE Systems as a systems engineering manager. I have over 38 years of experience in the city of Nashua on appointed and elected positions, including 15 years on the Nashua Airport Authority, serving as chairman and treasurer. 4 years on the Nashua Zoning Board of Adjustment, serving as chairman. 10 years on the Board of Education, serving as president, and several years as chair of their budget. I have served the past 10 years on the Board of Aldermen, serving as the chairman of budget and the chairman of the Joint Special School Building Committee. I have overseen the renovation and construction of 10 Nashua schools and currently overseeing the $120 million middle school project. I again thank the League of Women Voters and the National Library for sponsoring us this evening and look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Tyler Govea, please.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And first and foremost, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Nashua Public Library for putting on tonight's forum. It's great to be joined by everybody. I've grown up in Nashua. I went to school here. I played sports here in this community. I started a business and I'm a homeowner. I'm running to ensure that generations and generations after mine come to have the same opportunities that this city has provided for me and my grandparents. For months now, my team and I have been knocking doors, talking to people all over Ward 1, and the one thing's clear. They want a new voice and unique perspectives on how to handle our city's most important problems that we're going to hear a lot about tonight. My legislative priorities are pretty simple. It's making sure our first responders have what they need to make sure our city's safe. Another priority is protecting our paycheck. I don't need to tell you guys, after this year, we all could use a little bit more to stay afloat, but not just stay afloat, but to thrive. And lastly, I want to ensure that we invest wisely in our city, setting up clear return on investment policies to make sure anything we do, we can see a return from. My job is to be a voice in the aldermanic chamber for all of Ward 1 and all of Nashua. It's like my grandmother told me, is at a young age, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You do double the listening and less the talking. In the aldermanic chamber, I plan on being a voice of transparency, reason, and innovation. I look forward to hearing all the questions tonight, and I thank everybody for their support, and I hope to earn everybody's support in this upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Next, Trish Clee, please. You need to unmute yourself, Trisha.
I am so sorry. Thank you to all who made this event possible. From the day that I was elected, I made it a priority to work for Ward 3 in any way possible. My first year as Alderman, I worked very closely with the Mayor and Community Development to secure a $1 million grant for the Locke and Whitney Street projects in French Hill. I will do whatever needs to be done. I have organized and worked alongside citizens and faith groups to pick up trash in French Hill and along the riverfront. Another example is the neighborhood cleanup of the Shattuck Street tot lot. This cleanup came after listening to the frustrations of so many residents in the area who were tired of their children falling in dog poo. I've shown my dedication to the residents of Ward 3 by volunteering to be there and to help whenever possible, going beyond the expectations of an alderman. During the pandemic in these past 2 years, I've been there for anyone in need. I've helped residents get vaccine appointments, picked up prescriptions, groceries. I made free masks to anyone who needed them and sized them to all faces and ages. I've driven constituents to visit with family. I checked on citizens daily to remind them that they are not alone. I kept a table and chair in my car so that I could visit with people by sitting out in their driveway, outside their window, or on their walkway. Over the past 4 years, I've proven to Ward 3 residents that I am there 24/7. I promptly return and take phone calls every day of the week, regardless if I'm sick or on vacation. Even with the recent devastating passing of my little brother, I've responded to emails and phone calls timely because I don't want anyone to feel that they're being ignored. As the Ward 3 Alderman, to ensure that I am up to date on all issues coming before the full board, I attend all committee meetings, regardless if I am a member. From the day I was elected, I have kept my constituents informed through a non-political, non-biased newsletter that has grown to over 400 recipients. I listen is often used, but I do and I respond and I get the job done. I work with city employees to resolve issues with Ward 3 residents and have regardless of the size of the issue, and I get results. Please notice that I did not refer to anyone as a voter. I represent every Ward 3 resident, regardless of whether or not you have voted for me or are even old enough to vote. I honestly love Nashua, and as a 60-year-old woman who made Nashua her home 36 years ago, I can't think of a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Next will be, Carol, if you could read Daniel Richardson's statement for us, please.
Okay, yes, for Ward 3. I sincerely appreciate the offer of League of Women Voters to appear in the event to meet the candidates, but I unfortunately will not be with you. It's important for women to be fully apprised of a candidate's willingness to represent them as fully as the candidate would represent any other demographic. In my life and career, I have never differentiated the humanity, dignity, and rights of women from men. As a former alderman, I have listened to all voices and enjoyed doing so, no matter their opinion. During my term, our board never censored citizens and never limited citizens' speaking time. We would often stay past midnight to glean new information from bright minds. I recognize the wide spectrum of opinion within the female demographic. I look forward to representing all Ward 3 women in the coming term. The ballot question about National Police Commissioner appointment loomed in your at-large interview. Without evidence, the mayor's petition falsely conjured notion that governor's commissioner appointments were biased against women. The ruse sold a remedy of mayoral political appointees, falsely implying local control would be different. Female identity politics of division were used to drive petition signatures. Former Governor John Lynch and Jean Shaheen perceived no such bias in their appointments. Neither did Executive Councilor Deb Pignatelli in her approval of the governor's appointments. A mayor using his own police force to intimidate political opposition is a frightening thought. On masking ordinances, our little noticed Board of Health had outsized impact with the BOA's authoritarian O20018 and O20029 masking ordinances by way of RSA 4712. These ordinances were poorly structured. These cited no authoritative source for qualifying a mandate. They contained mandated face coverings proven ineffective against virus, fabric mask, scarf, or bandana, and groundlessly applied only to building complex of greater than 2 units. They are arbitrarily allowed a baseless face covering exception while dining in a restaurant. They contain no criteria for sunsetting ordinance except saying until rescinded. When these ordinances were rescinded, the decision was based on no criteria, only a recommendation from the CDC. No measure of achieving goal was ever established. More can be found in my Facebook page and in an upcoming Nashua Patch article. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Schmidt, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing in Ward 1. We've made an excellent connection from Amherst Street to downtown. This greatly benefits Ward 1 and Ward 2. You're welcome, Alderman Dowd. In addressing the Amherst Street, Sharon Ave, Pine Hill Road connection, we improved the roadway drainage, getting rid of that mud puddle. We made turns easier and less stressful, and we helped the traffic move more smoothly. We got the railroad crossing repaired and the cyclone fence installed during winter. All this happened because the citizens saw a need, and we worked together with the city to make this happen. We also finally got the sidewalk finished on our very busy Broad Street, replaced a dangerous playground in Lincoln Park, and we've been doing our very best to address the most urgent paving projects. We've done all this in Ward 1 because we work together. If it's the big projects like the Pine Hill Road reconstruction, or the smaller ones like the pothole that we fix in front of your driveway, it gets done because you have an advocate in City Hall. People need someone who they can turn to when dealing with the city. And I believe that's the job of a ward alderman. I also serve on the committees of infrastructure and planning and economic development. Both deal with important issues that protect and promote the city. I'm the chair of the Substandard Living Conditions Committee, and we've produced a few innovative ideas, including a database where all the rental units in the city and context for those who manage them, protecting renters and landlords by making essential information available during emergencies. I'm the liaison to the Business and Industrial Authority, just finishing a huge project, bringing more housing to the city. Oh my goodness, I need to talk faster. Anyway, I strongly support both of the Business Authority and the Airport Authority. And what I'm looking forward to is seeing you on Election Day, November 2nd. And thank you, NPO and League of Women Voters. That's it.
Well done. Okay. And then the last one, again, a statement from, this is a statement from Don Scott, read by Carol again. So thank you.
I have been a Nashua resident for 35 years now. My wife and I moved here from Lowell and raised our 2 daughters here. We have always thought that it was a great place to live, and we still do. Unfortunately, though, things have changed a lot for everyone in the last couple of years since the onset of the coronavirus and the political unrest in our whole country. I must admit, because I liked Nashua so much, that I never paid a lot of attention to local politics, and judging from the low participation in municipal elections, many other residents have not paid a lot of attention either. Now our elected officials, who were largely invisible before, have become very visible because of all that has happened. And I, along with a lot of others I know, are not too happy with what we are seeing. Many of our aldermen seem to just go along with what our mayor wants without questioning or considering other possible alternatives, including just saying no. I'm not saying that Mayor Donchis is always wrong either, but after all we have been through, especially for the last year and a half, it could be time to actually consider giving a bit of tax relief to city residents instead of thinking of other ways to spend more tax money. To turn our downtown into the scenic area it has always been, rather than resembling a permanent construction zone. My intention is to offer the voters an alternative. I'm a semi-retired accountant and company controller who worked in that field for more than 40 years. I've set up a Facebook and Gmail account for election purposes. Feel free to reach out to me at donscottward2nashua@gmail.com. So that was donscottward2nashua@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you to all the candidates for your good opening statements and for running for office. Now we turn to the questions on popular topics that were brought up by voters across the city. Because of tonight's time constraints, we ask the candidates to keep their answers to 1.5 minutes per answer. And once again, I'll hold up a yellow paddle when a candidate has 30 seconds left and the red paddle when the time is up. We may not get to all of the great questions that have been submitted. And I'm going to kind of just take the order that you gave the statements in and then advance it a little bit with a tiny bit of randomization at the end. So the order for the first question, we will start with Tyler. And we're going to start with a topic that voters brought up frequently in various forms. Since you will be elected to represent your own ward, please tell us about a few issues or goals specific to your ward that you'll work on as alderman. So I suppose it would make sense to state right up front your ward. I don't know everybody's wards, but probably the rest of you voters do. So again, just tell us about a few issues or goals specific to your ward that you'll work on as an alderman, and I'm giving you a minute and a half. Thanks, Tyler, for starting.
Thank you so much. And it's a great question. And there's a lot of issues right now in our ward that are important. The biggest one I've heard, door knocking on Broad Street and door knocking on Dublin Ave, is that Dublin Ave doesn't have a sidewalk. And a lot of people on Dublin Ave have talked about wanting one, and it just hasn't seemed to get done, hasn't seemed to get pushed across the finish line. So that would be one of my top priorities. I made the campaign promise. It's one that I plan on delivering on inside of the aldermanic chamber. And I'm willing to do whatever is needed to make sure Dublin Ave gets their sidewalk and that road becomes safer for not just residents, but for kids coming to and from the school bus stop, and for just anybody who wants to enjoy lovely Ward 1. Other than that, there are plenty of others. We have paving projects that have just taken months in the ward. I was talking to a neighbor just the other day who said, well, you know, it was great. They said they were going to pave my street, but unfortunately for 4 weeks, it has been chopped up and hasn't had a top coat, hasn't had one coat yet. So making sure our project's getting done and putting a new sidewalk on Dublin Ave is what I would do first. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish Clee, would you take the next swing at that question? Do you want me to repeat it or have you got it? You're muted.
I think I have it, thank you.
Okay.
Well, one of the projects that I'm working on right now is the overnight parking project within Ward 3. Ward 3 is very unique in that we have French Hill, we have the North End, we have just simple residential communities. Some areas lends itself very easy to getting overnight parking permits and creating these neighborhood parking venues, I guess you would call them. I've already started working with them. I've been meeting with the neighbors and trying to figure out what we can do. The other thing is sidewalks. The previous speaker spoke about sidewalks. In Ward 3, it's not as much as that we need sidewalks as much as we need sidewalk repair. The city is doing the best that they can to try to escalate paving and sidewalks. Weather is not always on their side. I want to continue with the Locke and Whitney Street project that I mentioned at the beginning, which was partly to be for the Safe Walk to School project. We were able to get the $1 million grant for that. And right now they are starting to get the bids, I believe, for design and so on. So I'd like to see that project go through. It's very important for those children that are walking to to the Mount Pleasant school system. And I think that I'd love to speak to anybody who wants to talk more in depth with it. A minute and a half is just not enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next would be Jan Schmidt, please. And again, are you comfortable with the question or do you need me
yeah, I've got it. Thank you very much, Kate.
Okay.
Ward 1 is a terrific ward. We have so many advantages here. We have one disadvantage, and one disadvantage is traffic. We've got very busy roads on Broad Street. We have twisty, turny roads like Coburn. Just about a week ago, an accident with a bicycle on a curve on Coburn. It was very traumatic for all of us who saw it and who knew that it happened. I'm working with the police to figure out how we can slow things down, that they will come and visit quite often. We have people passing buses. We have people speeding. We have people who aren't paying attention. So traffic is a really big issue. About the sidewalk issue, just to let you know that it is always delayed when there are sidewalks near a paving project, because we are required by the federal government to provide ADA access to the sidewalk, which means a 3-step process that takes a good amount of time. Also, when you're doing that, you also have I can see you, can't ever see you. The biggest problem is that it just takes time. And so if we could work on traffic in Ward 1, we would make a huge difference in the lives of neighborhood families here. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rick Dowd, please. And you're muted.
Yes, there's several projects that are both ongoing and working into the future in Ward 2. There are a number of them. One is 5 years ago, we applied for grant funding to do Safe Walking to School project at Charlotte Avenue. That was all done this past summer. And I know all the neighbors really appreciate it and like it. And we want to make sure that continues. Also, the Edgewood Cemetery had an issue and a whole bunch of trees were cut down. We have now replaced all the trees. Some of them died. We had the ones that were died that replaced and are guaranteed. The biggest thing is the middle school project, even though Pennachuck Middle School is in Ward 3. As chair of the Joint Special School Building Committee, I have focused on the middle school project. And Pennachuck will be completed next summer, and it's basically going to be doubling the size of the school and improving the air quality control and the other aspects of that. The other thing that we want to concentrate on is speeding. I see that. Speeding. I have reduced the speed limit, put legislation and reduced the speeding on Beauview and Charlotte Avenue. And we're looking at other roads as well. So there's a number of things going on in Ward 2, and I want to continue to make sure that they all reach fruition.
Thank you so much for all of you, your answers to that first question, and for keeping them in the time limit. I know it's frustrating and hard, but you're doing a great job and actually getting a lot of content. So I think the viewers are going to appreciate that. Okay, the next question, and Trish, you will be the lead-off batter for this one. The other most popular topic among voters was public safety. What are your top priorities related to policing and other public safety functions? Trish.
Thank you so much for that question. That is a hard one for 1 minute and 30 seconds. But the truth is that I would like to see more police presence, as we've talked about the traffic issues and so on. And when I do call and I do ask that something gets put on the hot list, it immediately does happen. The problem that I think we have is that we need to see the physical police vehicles around where these traffic issues are and so on. I think we need to see our police officers on the streets. I think they're doing as good a job as they can, possibly because of lack of staffing and so on. And they've been extraordinarily responsive when I've asked them to be there. But I do think that seeing the physical activity of it, I know even in Ward 3, we have a police station outside over at Railroad Square that is not always manned as it used to be. Again, it could be just staffing, but we need to see in these areas where there are many issues, thank you, many issues that it is important. It is very important that police are seen in that way. I believe our fire is doing everything they can to educate and so on. I know they're doing a survey so that they can be even better. I know the police have done a survey and so on. So I think trying to just continue with that and to support our police and fire as best possible is what we can do to help public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Schmidt, next. Do you want me to repeat the question? Public safety.
No, I got it. It's traffic again.
Okay.
It's a very big issue over here. I think maybe what we need to do is we need to increase the cost for the people who are driving less than safely. I think the state needs to increase the passing the bus charge. I think that it's pretty clearly that's a extreme danger and should never be allowed. As far as public safety, yes, we did get a request to fill out a little survey for the fire department. It's very essential because they're going to plan their next 5 years on what we're asking for. It is on my page on Facebook, and I believe it's also on my page on my website, janschmidtforward1.com. The two numbers are the numbers 4 and 1. Aside from that, safety, the police force is just stunningly excellent. And whenever I need them, they are there. The fire department, same thing. We had emergencies up in our little cul-de-sac, and they were here incredibly fast. And not only that they were responsive, but they did their job for us. Recently, a 98-year-old woman was saved from a burning building just a couple of days ago. And not only did they save the woman and stop the fire before it got into the rest of her home, but they also saved the dog. And I'm telling you, this is the community. Thank you very much, Kate. Got it.
Thank you. Rick Dowd next, please.
Okay, public safety is a very important topic in my area. And as I mentioned before, we've had 2 roads that in the Ward 2 that had excessive speeding, and put in legislation to have the speed limit on Beauview and Charlotte Avenue reduced to 25 miles an hour. Now that we've paved a lot of the streets, the people think that they're speedways, and they've been speeding. The police have been very good at responding and doing that. I'm the liaison to the police department from the Board of Aldermen, so I meet with the chief and the deputies quite a bit. And they're 14 officers short right now. And we only have 1 car per sector. So we're certainly not overstaffed. We're understaffed right now and trying to respond. The fire department as well is responding very quickly to fires and emergency health conditions. So I think they're doing an excellent job. And we, in the budget season last year, we passed enough of a budget for police and fire to ensure that we had the same level of service as we did in 2019, so that for the safety and welfare of all of our citizens.
Okay, thank you. And Tyler.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And, you know, public safety being one of the top priorities of my campaign, this is a very important question. And just recently, the other day, new software was purchased by the city of Nashua for our police to be able to decipher different languages from our very diverse community that we live in. And this is great. I think it's a great opportunity, and it will help these communications and to break barriers so that we can all be on the same page and transparent with each other. Neighborhood watch programs are another one, and I invite all neighborhood watch programs to what will be my quarterly meetings when I'm elected to Alderman, and we'll be able to talk about public safety even more in depth, and we'll be able to get into the nitty-gritty of it and how we can make this community even better. And in supporting law enforcement, it comes down plain and simple. If you support them, you do, and if you don't, you don't. And you just don't support law enforcement if you're voting yes on question 2. So with that being my answer to the question, I support our law enforcement. It's a top priority. Thank you.
And thank you. Okay, that completes answers to the second question. All right, we got several questions. Oh, and the order for this next question, we'll be starting with Jan Schmidt and then go on from there. So we got several questions about affordable housing, homelessness, and the virtual impossibility of affording rent in Nashua when making the minimum wage. What ideas do you have to help alleviate these interrelated problems? And again, we appreciate that in a minute and a half isn't going to get it all done, but you can distinguish your candidacies by your answers. So thank
certainly.
you for doing that.
Yeah, certainly. There's new housing being built as we speak in several places. The School Street lot is going to be having a multi-story apartment complex built on it. Very very useful for bringing people into the city, into downtown, where we don't have a lot of other services that they'll need at that time. I know when we're building, am I still online?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes.
I heard a very loud noise.
No, you're there.
Thank you. There's housing being built everywhere, and we know that it's absolutely essential. And the more housing that comes in, the less strain it is on the lower income folks, because the less housing there is, the more it is the down pressure. What I'd really like to see is, I would like to see any place that we have the availability to build starter homes. I think that builds community. I know that that's what worked in Ward 1. I got it, thanks. Ward 1, a generation ago, built a bunch of starter homes, and people moved in and made a community, stayed here, sent their kids to school here, have their grandkids come back to visit them. This is how you build community. I think this would be very good for this city. If it can be done, I'm going to support full bore building starter homes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Rick Dowd, would you take that question, please?
Certainly.
So go ahead and do that. Just like there's a room full of people.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. We had another interruption there. Affordable housing is a very important topic for the Board of Aldermen right now. We're taking several steps to do what we can to make it easier for developers to build affordable housing. Okay. As you may know, and certainly as I'm aware, running the Joint Special School Building Committee, the cost of building materials has escalated far beyond what anybody could have evaluated. So what it's going to take for affordable housing is the city is going to have to come up with incentives for builders to do construction of affordable housing. And we need to do that. We won't get there on affordable housing if we don't make it easier for builders to build those type of structures and still recognize a profit. Builders don't build things without some type of profit. So I think it's going to take a public-private partnership to get affordable housing built. We have a few things that are going on right now, and I'm hoping in the very near future you'll see things come to fruition with affordable housing, and that there will be projects that will allow the citizens of Nashville to all have a place to live. It's very expensive right now.
Thank you. Tyler, would you take that question, please?
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me all right? I heard I was half muted on the last question.
You're okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So affordable housing is absolutely a very important part of Nashua, and it needs to be addressed. You know, a good example of a project Nashua's done recently was the Broadstein Apartments, 237 new affordable units for housing. It was a great project, but for middle class, I believe a public-private sector partnership to help expedite these types of projects is very important. As somebody who just bought their first condo here in the city of Nashua, I went through the process. I played the market. I just went through the whole game, and it can be a lot easier. It can be a lot better. And I think making sure we have enough affordable housing is super important to attract not just people my age and younger, but people in the older generation as well. We have a responsibility to look after everybody. So having affordable housing is definitely something we need to do, and it's something we can definitely do better. Thank you.
Thank you. And last on this question, Trish Clee, please.
Thank you very much. As a New Hampshire state rep, as well as an alderman, I sit on the municipal and county government committee in the state. And one of the things that I've worked, and the reason why I am an alderman and a state rep, is because I believe that we have to work together. And one of the things that I've been working on the state is to try to get things to help us with affordable housing, to have certain types of zoning laws that get changed that would allow for small, tiny homes, or as some people call them, starter homes. I think that we do need to work better with private-public partnerships. And I think this can be done when we give incentives to these builders and these developers. And I think that doesn't just come from the city, but it comes from also the state. I think that we need to look towards these incentives that basically say much of what the federal government does now. If you get subsidized loans or low-income loans or help in any which way, you have to set aside X number of properties for not just for low income, but even for middle income. Market rate is far beyond what so many families, thank you, can handle. And I think that we need to look at that. I'm also a member of the Human Affairs, and I've worked with faith-based groups to help develop these programs for grants and for loans to help those who need even work with their current homes that are old and perhaps a heating system that's gone down or a refrigerator that's gone on the fritz. So I think that there are many different programs that we can do. And again, a minute and a half is too hard to get into them all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Carol, I want to check with you, but we're at 6:40. So as we had talked about before, I think it's time for us to go to the closing statements. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
And
all
can
right.
I just ask candidates, if you're not speaking, to please mute yourself? We've had a little interference. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so the order for the closing statements, as I said, would be, I think I said it was going to be reverse alpha. So that means the order for the closing statements will be Jan Schmidt, Trish Clee, Tyler Govea, and then Rick Dowden. You each have 1 minute. I know that's short for your closing statements, but we appreciate all that you're able to bring to the table tonight. So let me just change my timer for a moment while you prepare your remarks. Okay, and so once again, we'll begin with Jan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Something we all forgot to mention, the ARPA funds that are coming into the city and into the county and into the state. All of this can be used for whatever we choose, as long as it fits within the requirements. The biggest requirement should go to housing. We recently had a Zoom meeting where we discussed it. I'm afraid only people from Ward 1 showed up. Thank you, everybody. But people care about this. This is important. The money coming in, a big chunk of it going to housing, yes. But if anybody was asked me, how's the city doing? I'm going to say that we're consistently ranked high in safety, education, inclusiveness, and in our arts. We currently have a AAA bond rating. We're doing a good job with our funds. And as I said before, the job of a ward alderman is to advocate for the needs of the ward, ensuring services and support that we need are available to us, that the city doesn't forget us just because we're working well out here. I hope you'll let me continue serving you as an alderman. That was Jan Schmidt for ward1.com for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and so next is Trish Clee.
Thank you again. As I stated in the past, I do whatever the citizens need. I am a true advocate for the citizens of Ward 3, and that is what my job is, or one of my many jobs. I needed to add that when I heard that Pennachuck School did not have a crossing guard, I stepped up and was an acting crossing guard at no cost to the city. It's not something that I would suggest anybody do. I kind of put my life on the line when I did it, and as part of the Joint Special School Project, I advocated to get that light that sits out there. And the reason for it was because too many students were put into harm's way. Thank you. I want to also add that as a retired employee of the Department of Veterans Affairs, I have worked with veterans. When I first year as a state rep, I was on the State Federal Veterans Administration group, and I also chaired that committee. I've worked with people of all income levels. I listen to everything that everybody has to say. You may not always like my decision or my point of view, but I do listen and I do change my mind on the fly when necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tyler?
Thank you so much for hosting once again. This has been great. It's pretty clear civil discourse in the aldermanic chamber needs to improve. We can do better. And what better than by electing the next generation of Nashua leadership? Somebody who knows what the next generation wants instead of speculating like the aldermen do now. Somebody who will be there to protect your paycheck, safeguard your investments, and support our first responders. We have very important issues coming up in this upcoming election cycle. I please ask everybody to reach out to me if they have any questions. Govea for Nashua.com, G-O-U-V-E-I-A. It's a tough one, has every vowel but Y in it, but you guys can get this. Govea for Nashua.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And finally, Rick Dowd. You're muted, Rick.
Thanks again to the League of Women Voters and the library for sponsoring this candidates night. I devote a great deal of time to the Nashua City business and more specifically Ward 2. With the Board of Aldermen, we have ongoing projects to pave and repair over 74 miles of streets, including several in Ward 2. The mayor and I applied for a grant 5 years ago to make the safe routes to school improvement at Charlotte Avenue. The money was received this year and the project was completed this summer. I also work with the neighbors of Edgewood Cemetery and the cemetery trustees to replace all the trees cut down in the cemetery. Some of the replacement trees died this winter and we worked to get them all replaced and guaranteed. Again, I have worked on 10 Nashua schools renovation and construction projects, including the 2 high schools. The middle school project just saw the first middle school fairgrounds completed on time and under budget, meeting all expectations. Pennachuck Middle School will be completed next summer, and we will soon break ground on the new middle school in South Nashua. I ask for your continued support and your vote on November 2nd. Thank you again.
And thank you all so much for your remarks tonight, for running for office, and to the right now 100 people viewing online. Thank you, and we'll hear from the next wards 4 through 6 shortly. Carol, I turn it to you.
Yes, thank you to the candidates for all coming tonight. And those of you who are attending, if you want to listen to the other wards, just stay on. We'll plan to start that at 7 o'clock. And then at 7 o'clock will be wards 4, 5, and 6, and 8 o'clock will be wards 7, 8, and 9. Thanks. For any candidates just coming on, if your name on your screen does not say your ward, please right-click on your video, select rename from the menu, and add the number of your ward to the end of your name. Thank you. And also a reminder to candidates, some of you are just coming on during your portion of the program. If you're not speaking anytime tonight, if you're not speaking, please turn off, please mute yourself so we don't have interference. And if it's not your session, so if you're not from 4, 5, or 6 in the next hour, then please also hide your video until your time comes up. And those of you from 1 through 3, if you're staying on, please hide your video now. Thank you.
So it looks like Jan Schmidt and Trish Clee, you should hide your video, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I think you said it's their video is hidden. They just have their regular pictures up, which is just what Zoom does if you turn your video off. Yep.
Yeah, I do have my video shut off. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
Jan looks very much like her picture. It looked like her video was still on, but it's off.
So at 7 o'clock, I'm not going to say as much as I did at the very beginning, but I think there's some things I should say because there are a lot of people who will be just joining us.
That's me tapping on one of the microphones. Hello, can people hear me? This is Tim from the Aldermanic Chamber.
Yes, this is Carol. I can hear
We've
you.
been having some audio problems. It cuts in and out on our Zoom thing. We are still recording it on Zoom, so it is being recorded. Hopefully these problems won't continue. We're trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay.
So if you just bear with us. I mean, it's working fine now. If you can hear me,
Yeah.
it's working fine now. Throughout
Yeah.
the evening, it's been cutting in and out, and we don't know why. So
Yeah.
it may happen again. Hopefully it won't.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we are recording it.
Okay.
The recording it on Zoom, so we can definitely replay it without any issues.
Great. And
Okay.
just so you know, I'm going to rename your video speaker because you'll show the image of the speaker. So,
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
thank you.
Yep, bye.
Excuse me, Kate, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I wondered, I had spoken with,
Yeah, Elizabeth, the audience can hear you at the moment, just so we're all clear.
okay, I just want to ask, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And Elizabeth, can you, I'm going to rename you with your ward number. Is that 6?
Oh, I can do it. All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe I won't be able to. Hold on a second.
So my computer says it's 6:59, so we'll get started at 7.
So I think at this point, the candidates for this time period can turn your video on if you haven't done that yet. But please keep yourself muted until you're about to talk.
Okay. Okay, let's get started. My name's Carol Iman, and I'm the Nashua Public Library's Outreach and Marketing Librarian. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. If you are a candidate, as Kate just said, please make sure you're muted when you're not speaking. And if you're a candidate for Ward 7, 8, for any other ward than 4 to 6 right now, please also hide your video. The way the meeting is set up tonight, the audience will only see video of the candidates and the moderator. For the best viewing experience, we suggest using Zoom speaker view. To use speaker view, click the view button at the top right of your screen. This is on a computer. It may be a little different on a phone. And then select speaker view. Audience mics have been muted to reduce background noise. We are only accepting questions that were submitted in advance, so no further questions will be taken tonight. There is a Q&A button on your screen, but please don't use it because we won't be answering those questions. Our program is being recorded. It'll be available on our local access TV stations, on YouTube, and also from the library's online calendar, hopefully starting tomorrow. And I think that's everything. So I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Kate Kuhn, who chairs a unit of the League of Women Voters in the Monadnock region.
Thank you, Carol. Good evening. I need to see my speaker view. 1 second. Okay, thanks. Thank you for inviting me to moderate your candidate forum. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose individual candidates or political parties. We do, however, work to educate the voting public and to increase the number of people who vote. Your forums are very much in the spirit of voter education, and we sincerely thank the candidates who are participating here tonight to make their views known and to answer voters' questions. We're going to let the candidates each introduce themselves to you with a 2-minute opening statement, and then move on to questions that have been submitted in advance by voters. Some of the candidates cannot be here tonight, but have submitted statements that we will read in their absence. So thank you, Carol, for reading these. As your moderator and timekeeper, I will hold up a yellow paddle when a candidate has 30 seconds left and a red paddle when their time is up. So once again, it's going to be 2 minutes for the opening statements, and then questions will have a shorter answering time. So let's begin with the opening statements, and we're going to start with you, please, Elizabeth Liu.
Thank you, Kate. I'd like to thank the Women's League of Voters for hosting this very productive forum to allow the public to hear the candidates' views on the many issues that are important to Nashua residents. I'm a lifelong resident of Nashua, and as such, I have 65 years and a great deal of pride and memories of these streets and parks. And as it was for my grandparents who arrived here from Canada and Ireland, I pray that we always remain a city that welcomes and provides community for newcomers. It's been an honor and an education serving as Alderman for residents of Ward 6. My goal has been to prepare for every vote by objectively studying each and to treat each vote as an opportunity to bring the voice of Ward 6 residents to the table. I modeled my service after the expectation I hold for representatives who've received my vote in the past. I believe commitment to being informed and voting independently of partisan allegiance or one's political future is the only way to keep the office of Alderman a nonpartisan representation of all members of a ward. Each vote is an independent vote with no concern about falling on one's sword. In my opinion, these are principles that best guide the actions and decisions of an elected official. Today, I'm withdrawing from the race of Alderman of Ward 6. It's been my honor to serve my ward, and I'll always treasure this incredible education and experience. And thank you for allowing me to present this today.
Thank you, Ms. Liu. The next statement, opening statement, could we please have Mr. Ernie Jett? Is he here? Is Mr. Ernest Jett? Yes, Mr. Jett, you're muted. There we go.
I can hear you.
Okay.
So my name is Ernie Jetty.
Jetty, sorry.
I'm the current Alderman from Ward 5. I want to keep Nashua a good place to live, work, and raise a family for our children and grandchildren. I have lived here all my life, except for the time away at school and in the Army. I have degrees from Boston College in economics and law. I served as a captain in the U.S. Army. I've had a law office here for over 51 years. I have a record of public service as chairman of the Regional Planning Commission, president of the Nashua Youth Council, the Nashua Rotary Club, and the Nashua Bar Association. I've been director of the Greater Nashua Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Nashua Mental Health Center. I have volunteered with the Nashua Soup Kitchen and the Corpus Christi Food Pantry. I've been a coach with Nashua Youth Soccer and a member of my church's parish council. I've advised and represented people in all levels of courts in the state and have served as a court certified mediator for over 30 years. I believe that I have skills that benefit the Board of Aldermen and the city. I now have 4 years experience on the board and have served on the Joint Special School Building Committee, the Planning and Economic Development Committee, the Budget Review Committee, the Infrastructure Committee, and I'm the liaison to the Conservation Commission. I think that I have earned the respect of the mayor and the city department heads and employees, my fellow aldermen, and the members of the Board of Education with whom I have served. I've used my legal training to approach all issues based on facts and the law. I have used my training and experience as a mediator to present my positions with reason and respect. And I ask for your vote for Ward 5 Alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Jetty. Next, please, a statement from Alex Kamal and Carol. Would you read that for us, please?
I'm actually here.
Oh, you're here. Never mind. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Okay.
No worries. I apologize that I don't have video. I'm traveling at the moment, so I was lucky enough to get audio. But yeah, my name is Alex Kamal. I'm running for Alderman of Ward 6. I have lived in Nashua for 15 years now. Spent the last 15 years as a single parent with full custody of 2 children who I've raised and brought up through the Nashua school system. One of them, I'm proud enough to say, is a prestigious Summit Scholar up at Colby Sawyer College now, and my youngest son is a junior at Nashua High School South. I decided to get involved in the aldermanic race when I thought that it seemed like our current state of politics has been removed from the general public, and it seems like the regular citizen doesn't have a voice at City Hall anymore. And I'd like to try to rectify that for the people of Ward 6. I'm lucky enough and proud enough to have been able to have several conversations with my current Alderwoman, Elizabeth Liu. I'm very proud to have her support moving forward. It means a lot to me. I'm very proud of the work that she has done during her term, and it means a lot to me and speaks a lot to my nonpartisan nature to have her support going forward. So I thank you, and I appreciate your support for Ward 6.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Next, Peter LaJoy, if I'm saying your last name correctly, I hope.
Yes, that's correct. I could say LaJoy if,
LaJoy.
Going further north. Either way. Yes, I'm Peter LaJoy. I am candidate for Ward 4 Alderman, 30 years old. I'm married and have 2 children under 3. And so the state of the city is of, going forward, is of great importance to me. I decided to run when I simply found out that no one that was running against the incumbent in Ward 4. And I just thought that the citizens of Ward 4 should at least be given another choice, just almost just on principle. But also I have a passion for public service in the sense that I haven't been on Facebook in 10 years. I got on Facebook for the first time 10 years the other day. And I believe that politics should not be done online, but in communities, that the action should be done on that level. And what I would like is if the citizens would give me an opportunity, I'd like to provide a high level communication, high conscientiousness, and high effort for the citizens, because we're all on the same team and we need to work to make the city a great place. So that's all.
Thank you. Next would be Tom Lopez, please.
Hey everybody, my name is Tom Lopez. I'm the current ward alderman, and then I'm a candidate for re-election as well. I just wanted to take a minute to say this is the first I heard that Alderman Liu is not running for re-election. So I just wanted to acknowledge the service that she's given, and that this was a very, very difficult term. I don't think any of us really signed up for aldermaning knowing that we would have a pandemic ahead of us and having to make unusually impactful decisions in people's lives. So I think, I mean, everybody's very grateful for the efforts and the work that you put in, Liz. About myself, I have been alderman for Ward 4 for 3 terms. My priorities are making sure that everybody feels equal in participation in the government, that we're recognizing people of different cultures and able to engage them, as well as people coming from different economic backgrounds. I see a tremendous amount of strength in the diversity of Ward 4, a huge amount of opportunity, not only in Ward 4, but for the rest of the city to recognize us as leaders, the place where people come to start their lives, build their livelihoods. And that's very important to me. I've worked with National Soup Kitchen in the past, with Harbor Care as a shelter manager. I'm a mental health counselor. So my instincts usually tend towards constituent services, case management, helping people solve issues at the local level. I'm not always the best person to immediately solve their problems, but I can usually figure out who it is. And working in the aldermanic chamber to try to build positive consensus, to try to get the other 14 aldermen to go along with the kind of things that Ward 4 needs, and to ensure that Ward 4's representation is never overshadowed by the needs or priorities of other parts of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then the last opening statement, Mr. Jordan Thompson, please.
Thank you so much. I want to thank, of course, the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My name is Jordan Thompson, and I'm running for Alderman in Ward 6. I also want to take a second to thank Alderwoman Elizabeth Liu for helping Ward 6 navigate the challenges of the past 2 years as Alderwoman. I'm a writer, community organizer, and a proud Nashua resident. I went to Pennachuck Middle, Nashua High North, and Nashua Community College. I've worked with Mayor Donch's My Brother's Keeper initiative to organize our city's first Juneteenth and Black History Month celebrations. I've been a member of the Nashua Community Conversation on Race and Justice with the Nashua Police Department for several years now. I've worked as an organizer in Nashua for numerous campaigns, and now I'm an organizer for the American Civil Liberties Union of New Hampshire. I'm a hardworking, passionate advocate, and I care deeply about this community. I'm running because I believe we have a unique opportunity in this critical moment to address the needs of our residents and to move our city forward. I know what it's like to worry about where your next meal will come from, how you're going to afford the cost of quality education, and if you're going to be able to make rent this month. Economic insecurity is a policy problem, and we need policy solutions. Whether we're dealing with Nashua's lack of affordable housing, the opioid crisis, funding public education, or any other important issue, we need leaders who have lived experience tackling these issues to lead. I've had the privilege of calling Nashua my home for the last 10 years. A lot has changed since I first moved here in the summer of 2011, and we've certainly come a long way, but I'm confident that our brightest days are still ahead. I'm running for alderman because I want to solve problems, not create them. I want to help elevate our most vulnerable populations, immigrants, Black and Brown people, our seniors, people with disabilities, veterans, the working class, and more. Most of all, I want to move the city forward into a future that is safer, more welcoming, and more equitable for everyone who calls Nashua home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all of you for your opening statements. Okay. And now we turn to the questions on popular topics that were brought up by voters across the city. Because of tonight's time constraints, we ask that the candidates keep your answers to 1.5 minutes. And once again, I'll hold up a yellow paddle when a candidate has 30 seconds left and the red paddle when the time is up. We may not get to all of the great questions that have been submitted. We didn't in the first round, so I think the same thing will probably happen here. The order for the first question will begin with Alex Kamal. So I'm going to read you the question. We're going to start with a topic that voters brought up frequently in various forms. Since you'll be elected to represent your own ward, Please tell us about a few issues or goals specific to your ward that you'll work on as alderman. And 1 minute, I'm just going to change the timer on my timer. So give me 1 second. Okay, so as you represent your own ward, a few issues or goals specific to your ward that you will work on as an alderman. And Mr. Kamal, if you'll start.
Thank you, Kay, for the great question. A couple of things that I've learned so far in the campaign that are important to the people of Ward 6. I think number one is addressing the sidewalk issue on Lund Road. I know both of my children attended Fairgrounds Middle School, and I know there's a significant student population in the area that walks to school, to and from school in the morning. And Lund Road is a busy road. It's narrow, it's twisty, and it desperately needs sidewalk situation addressed. We also need to look into the sidewalk situation on Richardson Road for a lot of the same reasons, although not the school situation, but it is a fast road. It's a bypass with a lot of traffic and could definitely use a sidewalk. Another thing that is important to the people in Ward 6 is better park situation for the children. We have the legacy playground at Fairgrounds Middle School, which is great, but we can do more. We can improve some of the playgrounds along the Richardson Road area and in other spots as well to make sure that the children in Ward 6 have great quality places to play. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And next up, if you'll take the question, Peter LaJoie.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the big issue that I see with Ward 4 is the opioid epidemic and issues with drug addiction that's afflicting our community and our state. I would want to help in my position as ward alderman to more aggressively direct resources in that direction, empowering existing centers, helping women and those in need of help with drugs, instead of some other things that have been emphasized. But also infrastructure like sidewalks. Actually, my wife tried to take our 2 kids on a walk on Kinsley Street, and it's just tough with a stroller to get over some things. So, and paving, and just making sure that there's more of an emphasis on that, making stuff off Main Street look really good too, not just Main Street. And then third was just enhancing focus on individual liberties for people. I think last year, to be perfectly honest, there were some really aggressive measures taken, which I know a lot of people felt bypassed by, that they weren't able to make their own decisions. So I would just want to re-emphasize individual liberty for people in that regard. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next, Mr. Tom Lopez.
Hello. So a lot of the priorities that I've been working on more recently include the parks. There's been a lot of interest over the years in getting a splash pad. And while that particular strategy is difficult per DPW, we have been launching a Your Choice, Your Voice campaign, which is participatory voting. It's a small pot of money that we get, that the people living in the immediate neighborhood get a chance to identify their priorities. So that park social is one of the projects is a MR, and the residents will be able to vote on that to see whether that's how funds might be used. We improved the Ash Street park offerings with the futsal court, and we did improve a lot of different streets in Nashville with paving, but unfortunately one of the casualties were the lights over Los Amigos. One of the utility companies had clipped it, and then there's a moratorium. Once you pave a road, you're not supposed to go dig it up again. So we had to work with them very closely to get them to restore the electricity to that park to make sure that it's safe, and to make sure that residents are able to use it effectively. There's a lot of infrastructure needs in Ward 4, particularly making sure that we have clean water, effective sewage, wastewater treatment, that kind of stuff. But primarily, I think right now we're struggling with a lot of mental health distress and some substance misuse issues. We have, I think we tackled the, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of time. I need more time to answer some of these, sorry.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. And next would be Mr. Jordan Thompson.
Thank you. This is a great question, and I'm probably going to find myself with the same issue of wanting to address so many topics with limited time. So in knocking doors and talking to Ward 6 residents, I hear a lot about expanding access to sidewalks, in addition to repairing the sidewalks that we have, but making sure that sidewalks are ADA compliant and accessible is a priority. I've heard some issues about overnight parking that I certainly want to address, especially in congested areas in my ward. Accelerating the paving program. We've talked a lot about infrastructure, and particularly in my neighborhood, there are some issues there. Trying to make sure that parks are continuing to be clean and expanding the green spaces. So those are just some of the issues. I also hear things about trying to get electric car charging stations more accessible to people who have electric cars, but there are other bigger issues like the opioid crisis that so many are dealing with. And of course, affordable housing is a huge issue in my ward as well. So there are many to touch on, and certainly all of them I would like to make a priority as alderman. Thank you.
Thank you. And then last to answer that first question, Mr. Ernie Jetty.
Thank you. So Ward 5 has when I first became alderman, when I was campaigning 4 years ago, one of the biggest issue in Ward 5 was West Hollis Street. The traffic, I've heard a lot of people complaining about the traffic, the speed of the traffic and the amount of the traffic. And with the increased development in Ward 5, a lot of new houses have been built. The traffic has even become worse. The city is planning on building a new public works office building at the landfill, and I was able to get the city to move the entrance to that new facility away from some of the homes that abut it. But as part of that process, the city has agreed to put in a traffic light in the area of the landfill, and so we're hoping that will improve the traffic situation. The other thing, we have a lot of conservation and recreational land in Ward 5. I serve on the Conservation Commission, so I'm keeping my eye out on how those areas are managed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers to that first question, everybody. The other most popular topic among voters was public safety. And the order that we'll start with Tom Lopez. We'll start with you for this one. So, related to public safety, what are your top priorities related to policing or other public safety functions?
I think supporting the police and what they're looking for in terms of budgetary items is a key component. It's been said a couple of times that we don't really challenge the mayor as the board, but particularly with union negotiations and compensation for officers, we definitely do. We've overridden his vetoes multiple times. So I think making sure that the police have the staff that they need and the resources and the funding they need is important. But I also think building coalitions and partnerships is critical as well. I serve as liaison with the Continuum of Care. And as I started to mention previously, we built a great partnership with Safe Station through the fire department. And I think we need to look at doing something similar here today. The face of substance misuse has changed. It's no longer as much opioid as it is methamphetamines and cocaine. That puts users and police and first responders at risk of different things. But there's also a lot of traumatic experiences that have happened. There's adverse childhood experiences that children experienced with the first opioid crisis, and then there's all kinds of, there's an increase, like a surge in suicide and suicide-related crimes or issues that puts people in danger. So I think we need to connect more resources to the police, give them more tools to work with in intervening, and maybe make sure that we're using other programs like mobile crisis whenever we can, so that it's not always a police officer who's responding to an emergency, where maybe a social worker or a mental health provider may be just as helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan Thompson, would you take that question next, please?
Certainly. I think that the National Police Department sets a really great standard for the rest of the state of New Hampshire and even the rest of the country to follow. I've had the pleasure of working with them over the past 5 years, specifically on the Nashua Community Conversation on Race and Justice with Chief Kerrigan, who is the chair of that, and so many other amazing community residents. I think that we need to be investing more in community policing programs like Nashua PAL. We need to be doing more to create dialogue between law enforcement and communities, specifically communities of color, to build trust with Black and brown populations. We certainly, as Tom touched on, need to reimagine the role of policing and responding to mental health crises. We certainly shouldn't be criminalizing those who are suffering under poverty or addiction. And we need to be supporting law enforcement as they work with new immigrant populations. We've made a lot of strides in this area over the past several years, but there's more work to be done, and I will certainly support that. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up for that question, Alex Kamal.
Yes, thanks for the question. I first just like to say that I'm incredibly proud of the great job that Nashua Police does in our community, along with the other first responders, Nashua Fire Department. I'm lucky enough to live just behind the Lake Street Fire Department, so I see firsthand the amazing job that they do every day, and I just couldn't be any more proud of them. I think that as a city, it's our responsibility to support them when we can, make sure that they have the tools and especially the funding available to them that they need to do their job properly, safely, accountably, so that ultimately every citizen in Nashua can trust the police and the first responders and be able to call upon them when they need them. I also feel that it's incredibly important to make sure that the National Police Department can remain independent from city politics. And that's why I think it's important for us to vote no on question 2, which I will be doing, and I urge everybody to consider doing. But other than that, I would just like to thank the National Police, Nashua Fire, and the first responders for the incredible job they do. And I hope that as Alderman, I'll be able to support them in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Jetty.
Thank you. My first 2 years as an alderman, I was assigned a liaison to the National Police Department, and it gave me an opportunity to work with the police and the police commission. I was there when the Chief Lavoie retired and Chief Kerrigan took his place. And I'm very, very impressed with the professionalism of the National Police Department. And I think they've done a great job making Nashua a very safe place. It's been rated by several sources as one of the safest places in the United States. And we thank them for that. The fire department is also top notch. I've learned, that a lot of our police officers and a lot of our firefighters don't live in Nashua. They come from other areas because they find the Nashua Police Department and the Nashua Fire Rescue to be top-notch places to work and to get trained, and I hope that continues. Thank you.
Thank you. And last to answer this question, Peter LaJoy, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just about everything that everyone said, Mr. Lopez said about changing how incidences are responded to, I think is actually really excellent. I would add that I would, as alderman, I would explore further proactive ways that the city can help fund and support proactive outreach with regard to drug misuse, and for the purpose of stopping crime at its source. Crime happens because people get messed up by their situation. And I was actually in I was in AA for in my early mid-20s, and so I know that spiral, that hell that happens when you're trapped in that, and it's almost like you're possessed. You end up causing problems for other people. And I was there, and it was programs like Alcoholics Anonymous and shelter and rehab facilities that helped me get where I needed to be a productive member of society. And I think that if we emphasize that and find more powerful ways of doing that and put it front and center as part of Nashua's identity, I think that would really send a message to the rest of the state and the country that Nashua is going to turn around what is a nationwide drug challenge.
Thank you for that. And okay, that rounds up the answers to the second question. Okay, and leading off the order for the third question, Jordan Thompson, you'll be first. So we got several questions about affordable housing, homelessness, and the virtual impossibility of affording rent in Nashua when making the minimum wage. What ideas do you have to help alleviate these interrelated problems?
Thank you so much for my question. It's my favorite question. I'm really passionate about affordable housing. I also just want to take a second to thank Peter for sharing that personal story. I think that's very, very powerful. So thank you for that. On affordable housing, we need all hands on deck. We have a lot of people that are really invested in this for a lot of good reasons, and we need to be considering all options. And so we need to explore good ideas from all sides of the political spectrum. We need to make it easier, for example, for developers to build with incentives, explore converting abandoned lots and buildings in the area. Zoning is another thing to consider, considering microgrants for landlords to improve current conditions. But we really need to create more workforce housing. I am a renter currently. I've worked minimum wage as recently as 2019. That is a starvation wage. It is impossible to afford even a studio or one bedroom working minimum wage in Nashua today. And also, I would like to say that $1,400 to $1,600 a month for a studio is not affordable for anyone, especially young people and our seniors. So we really need to be prioritizing affordable housing like nothing else, because housing is fundamental. I believe that everybody has a fundamental right to housing. And so we also need to be making sure that we can lift people out of houselessness, that we're not criminalizing people who are homeless. And we need to just explore so many of these ideas to really move Nashua forward on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Ernie Jetty again, please.
Thank you. This is a very complex and complicated question or problem. There are two parts to it, if I remember correctly. The homelessness part is something that we can do something, and we have been doing something about that, and that is providing alternatives, temporary shelter for people, so that they can get over the crisis that they might be in. And we've done that. The private sector has done a tremendous amount to supporting the expansion of the National Soup Kitchen shelter. And there are other shelters as well that have been supported by the private sector. The city has done some has helped somewhat. And that kind of relates to the next part of the question is the affordable housing. The city can do only so much to, maybe with zoning to make it more accessible. for development of housing, but the we can't afford, the city just can't afford the amount of money that's necessary, and that's going to depend on the state and the federal government, and we just have to make sure we're ready to implement those funds when they become available.
Thank you. Peter LaJoy, please.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, my wife and I are in a place where we're renting now, and we're looking at housing, home owning options, and it's difficult. And we find ourselves looking further and further outside the radius at things that are affordable. I think one solution to that would be tiny house homes, so low square footage mobile homes. Creating some provision for that to be allowed. I think someone's referred to it as starter homes. I think that would help a lot. Yeah, the workforce program is great. Expanding that would be good, and trying to keep, and it's hard, but try to keep property taxes in a place where landlords don't feel the need to raise rents as much, because they have a calculation they have to make, and the best we can do to keep property taxes down, I think that'll help with the rent situation. A lot of it's outside of city's control. I mean, the way the housing market works, but I think that those are a couple of things that we can do.
Great, thank you. Alex Kamal.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So like several of the candidates have already said, I also rent in the city of Nashua, and I have been a single parent with a single income for 15 years, so I certainly understand the struggles with trying to make sure that rent is paid on the first of every month. And it's tough. I mean, I make more than minimum wage, and it's tough. So I can imagine how hard it is for someone on minimum wage to make rent in our city. I think some of the things that we can do, as some other candidates have mentioned, are invest in starter homes as an option, keep the property tax burden low to help landlords keep rents low, and also work on inclusionary housing incentives with new developments to ensure that when developments are approved in the city, that we make sure that they include a certain number of not just low income but middle income housing as well, to make sure that everybody in the city has the option to find a good place to live. And I think it's important to work on economic development as well, because the two things go hand in hand. We want people to come here, but they need somewhere to work, and we want businesses to come here, but they need a workforce. So the two things have to go hand in hand together, and I hope to be able to work on that going forward.
Thank you. Tom Lopez.
Thanks. So sustainable housing is an issue that I've been working with for most of my professional life, and then additionally, since my time with Alderman. And Ward 4 is particularly complicated because you have some areas that are definitely urban, and you have some areas that are more suburban. So in the suburban areas where there's available land, we've worked on accessory dwelling units. The tiny house concepts may work, but there's also a danger that overdevelopment of green spaces and fundamental changes to the characteristics of neighborhoods may be an issue for people in that area. Particularly Mohawk Tannery has a huge opportunity to build multiple housing units, but making sure that the road doesn't go through residential neighborhoods and comes off the Broad Street Parkway, making sure that we clean up the environmental disaster that the tannery left are important parts of that. In the more urban areas of Nashua, downtown specifically, where you have access to more amenities, different populations need access to those, such as elderly people or people who are struggling with economic issues. When we talk about affordable housing, typically that refers to a scale, like a relationship between your housing costs being 1/3 of your total income. So you can make $60,000 a year, and affordable housing looks very different than if you're making 30 or 35,000, or if you're on a fixed income. I know that our market rate housing has gone through the roof, and that the Housing Authority particularly has had to continually increase the value of their vouchers. So we do need to look at the total economic picture with things like the city's master plan and with inclusionary zoning efforts, which are underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't give you your 30-second thing. I'm going to take the liberty of adding one question that came to your ward group specifically, to wards 4 through 6. And if we can answer it in 1 minute, which you may be able to do because it's almost a yes or no question, but it's related to the question that you were just working on. So here's the question. And I'll have Peter LaJoy start with the answer, with the first answer. Would you support adding a consumer protection advocate in the city attorney's office in Nashua, especially to enforce that unit owner associations comply with the terms of the Condominium Act? To me, it sounds like a very technical question, but it's obviously targeted towards your city. So would you support adding a consumer protection advocate in the city attorney's office, especially to enforce that unit owner associations comply with the terms of the Condominium Act? 1 minute, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, thank you. I'd have to admit that I'm not familiar with the exact nature of the question. So to avoid just talking out of I'm just gonna pass. Thank you, if you understand. All right, great. Thank you.
Maybe it can come back around to you after the other people answer. So next, Jordan Thompson.
You know, I'm similarly, I also do not have much insight on this. It sounds very technical, but it sounds very important. And if you would be able to write the question in the chat so that we can sort of see it, I think that would also be a little bit more helpful, because again, I think to what Peter was alluding, I don't want to just say anything,
okay.
But I also, I'm not totally sure.
Kate or Carol, could you do that while I'm doing the timing? Could you write it in the chat?
I can, give me a moment. I can find it and copy and paste it from what I sent you.
Thanks. Yeah, I would never be able to get back into the documents to copy paste. I'd have to type it. The next person who would be answering that is Ernie Jetty. So you can be thinking, you get a little time advantage here. So again, somebody sent this in, and oops.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, we'll wait a second to give Kate a chance to put it in the chat, if you don't mind. Sorry about this. I thought this was going to be fast.
Well, if you want, since I'm traveling, I'm not going to be able to read that anyway. So rather than have 30 seconds of dead air, I can give you a brief answer.
Great, thanks, Alex.
I'm pretty unfamiliar with it, but it sounds like if this is something that is important to the people of Ward 6, one of the first things I'll do when I get to the hotel later is look up the Condominium Act and see what I can do to educate myself on it. One of the things I've tried to pride myself on is being a voice for the people of Ward 6. So if it's important to them, I'm going to make sure that it is important to me.
Okay, thank you. So where were we? I think, Kate, what are we doing about this? Well, the next person to take us, oh, there it is. It's in the chat now.
And I think if you're not familiar with the Condominium Act specifically, which makes sense, I honestly wasn't until I started reading about it because of this. If you could just address the part about if you think a consumer protection advocate in general is a good idea for the city to have.
Okay. So Jordan, did you already try that one?
I did, and I will take the same direction as I would like to educate myself a little bit more on the Condominium Act, but I do believe that the idea of a consumer protection advocate in the city sounds like a great idea. It's certainly something that I would consider.
Okay, and Tom Lopez, you're a wrap on this question.
I'm not sure Alderman Jetty got a chance to answer though. I think we shut him down.
Oh, okay, we'll come back to him then. Okay.
But personally, I'm somewhat familiar with the concept. I'm not sure that it would be a role that would fit into our city government, and I'm not sure it's a role that the taxpayers of Nashua should take on particularly. I think that's more of a state level discussion. And I certainly would be hesitant to do a consumer protection advocate in the legal office before we do something with regards to our own low-income substandard living conditions. People with condominiums are definitely, they have needs and they have contracts, but we have much more present issues that we have a standing subcommittee for to address. So while this is something that may fit into that, I wouldn't necessarily take it at face value as presented. I would probably want to explore the issue. And I think such a role would probably be limited mostly to an education role, not the city trying to intervene in these kind of situations, not without any kind of framework of city ordinances to work with. And that's something that code enforcement would typically handle.
Thank you so much. And my apologies, Ernie, Jetty, which you get the last word here.
Okay, thank you. So, I would, the person who asked this question is probably not going to like my answer, but the Condominium Act is a state law. It's not a city ordinance, and it does provide for certain protections for condominium owners, and the Attorney General is charged with enforcing that. Beyond that, after the condominium is developed, there is in most cases, a condominium owners association or homeowners association, which takes over. And a lot of the times, the problems are between the residents and their homeowners association, and it's really a private matter. Unfortunately, people have to it's like tenants. They have to enforce their own rights under leases, and so no, I would not be in favor of the city providing for that consumer protection condominium attorney. Thank you.
Okay, and then now we're going to come right to the closing statements. And once again, you get 1 minute apiece. I thank you so much for your thoughtful answers to the questions. Okay, and in reverse alpha order, if we could please start with you, Jordan.
Of course. So a few things. Again, I'm running for alderman because I'm committed to a healthy, thriving Nashua for families, businesses, and individuals. Everyone on this call, we may have our differences because that comes with the territory of having a wide variety of diverse lived experiences in a community like ours. But I'll always listen with intention and make decisions with the best interest of Ward 6 residents in mind. Over the next couple of weeks, you'll likely get a knock on your door from me or a volunteer working with my campaign, and I hope you'll take the opportunity to talk with me. I hope to earn your support. But additionally, I want to build on the work that we've done in the city to move Nashua forward. I'm filled with hope and optimism about the days ahead. And it's really because, partly because of some of the folks that are on this call. Running for office is not an easy task, but it's always worth it to stand up for what you believe in and to engage in this political process we call democracy. So thank you to all the candidates. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. And I hope, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, that you'll come out to vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. And next goes to you, Tom.
Yeah, well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this event on and giving us all a chance to kind of share our ideas and also for voters to come and have a place where they can meet us, particularly with the whole outbreak and risk levels. It's been a little bit difficult organizing events in the city such as this, so I'm very grateful to that. I want to thank my competitor as well for running as well. He's right, it does keep me honest. I had a congenial relationship with Arthur Craffey, who ran against me several years, and he was pretty clear that he was running to make sure that I didn't take my position for granted. I think it's a privilege to have been alderman and to be able to affect the kind of positive changes that we've seen over the last couple of years, but there's still a lot more work to do. And I look forward to working on issues like low-income housing and public safety and helping people feel like they really do have a voice, and ensuring that Ward 4 retains the character and inclusion that it has had in the past years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Peter.
Yes, thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. Providing nonpartisan information to voters is such an important and necessary part of how we do things in local politics. And I just wanted to offer myself as an alternative to voters. If you would like to see a change in representation, I am here. and I would represent you with great fervor and with the desire to make things better for those who are especially most in need of a voice of support when they may feel like they don't have one. I thank Mr. Lopez for cordially acknowledging me, and I certainly don't want to be adversarial. So I wish you all the best, and I hope the voters of Ward 4 vote for me on November 2nd at Ledge Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernie Jetty.
Thank you very much. I hope that the voters of Ward 5 have appreciated the service that I've rendered so far. I think my experience as an attorney and a mediator has enabled me to represent the ward with distinction. I've been very responsive to constituent problems and complaints, and have worked well with the city department heads in order to answer their questions. I would like to point out that we have an election coming up November 2nd. I hope you come out and vote. I would like to remind people that that absentee ballots are available, and the city clerk's office has made it clear that if you are afraid to come out because of COVID, that is a legitimate reason recognized by the state to obtain an absentee ballot. So I encourage anyone who feels that way to apply for an absentee ballot. You can get one online through the city clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Alex Kamal.
Yes, thanks. I would just like to also thank the National Public Library and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I think that it's a great way for all of us to get our message out to the people of Nashua. I'd also like to one more time thank my current Alderwoman, Elizabeth Liu, for her years of service. And I thank her for her support to my candidacy. It does mean a great deal to me. I hope that the people of Nashua remain as passionate about the upcoming election as I've seen so far. I hope that we have a great voter turnout. And, you know, although I am running for Alderman in Ward 6, the Board of Aldermen serves the entire city. So if anyone in the city, not just in Ward 6, has issues they'd like to talk about, they can reach me at info@camo4nashua.com. That's the number 4, info@camo4nashua.com.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. And Carol, Nashua Public Library, back to you.
Okay, thank you to all the candidates for participating tonight. We really appreciate it. In a few minutes, we'll start the forum for wards 7 through 9. So those of you who are candidates for wards 1 through 6, at this time, if you could, if you're staying on, hide your video and make sure you're muted. That would be helpful. Okay, it's 8 o'clock, so we can get started. This is the forum for candidates for alderman for wards 7 through 9. For those of you who haven't been here for the whole evening, I'm going to quickly repeat some announcements I made earlier. The way our meeting is set up tonight, you will only see video of the candidates and the moderators. For the best viewing experience, please use Zoom speaker view. To use that view, if you're using a computer, click the view button at the top right of your screen and then select speaker view. All audience mics have been muted to reduce background noise. We're only accepting questions submitted before the event. So no further questions will be taken tonight. You will see a Q&A button on your screen, but we're not monitoring that, so please don't type your questions there. Our program is being recorded. It will be available on our local access TV stations, on YouTube, and also from the Nashua Public Library's online calendar, hopefully tomorrow. A reminder to the candidates, if you haven't heard me say it already, if you're not speaking, please keep yourself muted. But all candidates for 7 through 9, if you're able, you can turn on your video now. And if you're from wards 1 through 6, time to turn off your video. Okay, and now I'll turn it over to our moderator, Kate Kuhn, who chairs a unit of the League of Women Voters in the Monadnock region.
Thank you so much, Carol. Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to moderate your candidate forum. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose individual candidates or political parties. We do, however, work to educate the voting public and to increase the number of people who vote. Your forums are very much in the spirit of voter education, and we sincerely thank the candidates who are participating here tonight to make their views known and to answer voters' questions. We're going to begin with opening statements. We'll let the candidates each introduce themselves to you with a 2-minute opening statement. And then we're going to move on to questions that were submitted in advance by voters. Let's see. Thank you. Well, we don't need any statements read because everybody's here for this segment. So as your moderator and timekeeper, I will hold up a yellow paddle when you have 30 seconds left in your answer, and a red paddle when time is up. So the 2 minutes for the opening statements. And then when we get into the questions, it's 1.5 minutes. We're going to go in alphabetical order for the opening statements. And so we will begin with you, Mr. Cathy. John Cathy? Yes, John Cathy, if I hope I'm saying your name correctly.
You are, just like a girl's name, Cathy.
All right, great. There you go.
Makes me feel like a big, strong man.
We'll start with you. All right.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Nashua Public Library for hosting this forum. I always enjoy being able to talk about the issues and what's facing the city and what we can do to solve all the various issues that we have going on in Nashua. As some have surmised, I am not a native of Nashua. I actually moved here to marry the woman who is now my wife. And it was probably the best decision I ever made because she's awesome. And we are blessed to live in a great state and a great city. Prior to moving to Nashua, I spent just over a decade in the entertainment industry, working on various film projects from films to music videos. I was a producer. I've served other various roles, budgeting, logistics, project management, and really grew as a thinker, as a problem solver. I tend to be an analytical thinker. I tend to bring a pragmatic framework to solving problems. And I want to bring that mental framework to the aldermanic chamber because I believe too often things have become divisive or partisan. This is a disservice to the citizenry. I shouldn't have chosen that word. That's a bad word. Because it prevents us from crafting sound policy. Crafting sound policy benefits all of Nashua. And the policies should be elevated based on how well they're crafted, not on who's creating them or what side of the aisle they're coming from. The important issues of the day need to be solved with a mindset of how does this benefit the city? How does this benefit the citizens? Can we afford it? And what are the second and third order effects that are going to be caused by these policies? I'm a staunch advocate for small business, and I believe that they are the key ingredients that lead to prosperity for all businesses, the city, and the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Ray Guarino. And again, help me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly.
That's good. My name is Raymond Guarino, and I'm running for the Board of Aldermen because I believe in governance and government. Our government derives its authority from the people, so our policies, laws, they have to reflect what the people desire, what the people need. I believe there are certain issues that we can all agree upon at the local level, and that includes keeping up our infrastructure, such as sewers, utilities, roads, transportation, maintaining state-of-the-art protection in fire and police, and building a public school district that can support each child in fulfilling their full potential in partnership with parents. I believe that government should be proactive, not just reactive. I moved to Nashua in 1999 with my family. We now call it home, and I care very much what happens in our city. I have worked as a transportation planner for the past 35 years for regional planning agencies, producing traffic safety studies and traffic impact studies. I was also a staff planner for the town of Barnstable. So I have experience in municipal zoning and ordinances. I understand the site planning process, as well as the roles of municipal boards and departments. I also had many, many years ago, a small business with my brother. It was a sandwich shop. So I understand the perspective of small business. I think there are opportunities and challenges that Nashua faces at this time. We have some strengths. We have the new middle school projects and constructing a new middle school. We have a construction of the Performance Arts Center. I think these are pluses for our city. We also have some challenges, and those are financial. We need property tax relief. We have to find ways to reduce healthcare costs. But I believe that local government should be responsive and responsible. And that's why I'm running for Alderman for Ward 7.
Thank you. Next, Linda Harriet Gathright. If I said your name correctly, I hope.
That's correct. Thank you very much, Kate. Again, this is Linda Harriet Gathright. I've been a resident of Nashua for 42 years, most of my life. I'm also a resident of Ward 9 for 37 years. I graduated from Daniel Webster College with my BS and AS in business. I'm a member of the New Hampshire House of Representatives, as well as the Board of Aldermen here in Nashua, representing Ward 9. I'm a trustee of the New Fellowship Baptist Church, which is located at 50 Ash Street in Nashua, right next door to the Powell Center. I'm also a treasurer for the United Baptist Convention Incorporated for Mass, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. I'm a corporate retiree after 34 and a half years with the telephone company. I actually retired from Verizon. And actually, I started off in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania with Bella, PA. And back then when we were part of Ma Bell, you could transfer wherever you choose. My husband took a job here with Ralph Lauren Men's Clothing, and I transferred to New England Tel back in '79. So since I've been in the community, I've worked in the community tirelessly most of my life, even while working for the telephone company. I'm an activist. I'm a founding member and co-chair of National Community Conversation on Race and Justice. I'm the founding executive member for Nashua My Brother's Keepers. And I'm a former New Hampshire commissioner on the status of women. I am a recipient of many community service awards throughout the state. And I say that to say that working in Nashua in particular and reaching out to my community here, and that's the Thompson community, we've done a lot to make many changes in the city, which I've been very much a part of it, in that Ward 9 as well. So I thank you for the time to speak a little bit about myself. And I think some of the work that I've done definitely shows. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Parks.
Hello, my name is Patrick Christian Parks. I go by Chris. If you can tell, this accent's not really from New England or New Hampshire. Originally born in Alabama. Spent about 16 years in the Marine Corps. After I graduated from college, I got my commission. Lived in DC, lived in Southern California, Northern California, and North Carolina. When we were living in Northern California, my company told me after about 7 months, hey, you got a promotion. You can live anywhere north of New York City. We chose Nashua. Out of all of the places that we could have lived, Nashua, we looked at it and it was an easy choice. We can honestly say that we love it here. We moved here in 2019. We love our city, we love our state, and we love living in New England. I've always had an interest in politics. I majored in political science when I was in college, with a specialty in American government and constitutional law. Spent 16 years in the Marine Corps. I did 11 of those as an officer. I was an infantry officer. I led men and women in very hostile situations. I did 2 tours in Iraq, one during the invasion of 2003, one in 2008 and 2009. And then I went to Afghanistan in 2010 in some of the worst areas. I want to continue to serve my city and serve my country. I'm running this campaign. It's about reason. It's about common sense. I don't care about political party. If someone has a good idea, it's a good idea. It doesn't matter who it comes from or which side they usually side with politically. I'm running for Alderman because I don't think City Hall is currently working. From last year when the Board of Aldermen even thought about passing that curfew, passing the curfew, sidewalk projects that haven't been finished, the mayor's attempt to take control of the police commission and the performing arts center. That's one of the reasons why I'm running. Thank you.
John Sullivan.
Yes, good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Parks for his service to our country. Greatly appreciated. Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this virtual event. I'm John Sullivan, and I'm running for Alderman in Ward 9. This is my first attempt running for any type of public office. I'm running to bring the people back to the table. I've been in Nashua since 1976 and in Ward 9 since 1997. I went to school here in Nashua, and I'm a graduate of UNH. I'm a current member of Nashua Rotary and have been a Rotarian for about 20 years now. I was honored to serve as the past president of Nashua West Rotary back in 2015, 2016. Professionally, I've worked in sales as either a frontline contributor or in sales leadership, and I've managed budgets and profit and loss statements for both sales and marketing departments. My career has also afforded me the opportunity to see many parts of this country and even the globe. What this brings to Nashua is perspective on how other parts of the country function and different ideas to bring back home. I'm married to Carrie, a great wife and mom who has taken the lead in raising our 3 children, Aiden, John, and Caroline. And she's also been past president for New Searles Elementary PTO. We've both coached youth basketball at the Nashua YMCA, as well as boys and girls biddy basketball. I've also served on the boards of the Nashua Youth Council and Nashua Soup Kitchen. And I even volunteer at Immaculate Conception Parish here in Nashua. I'm running to spend the people's money responsibly, keeping our neighborhoods safe, ensuring our city's infrastructure is sound, and balance our attention across the city, not just on downtown. Also stretching ourselves to give our kids the education they deserve and getting Ward 9 involved into the community and participating in the overall function of our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. And last opening statement, Derek Tebow.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Nashua Public Library for holding this. I too want to thank Chris for his service. My father fought in Vietnam, did a tour over there, so I absolutely thank you for that. I may be the only one that was actually born in Nashua. Thibault family goes back to the late 1800s being in the city, coming to the mills from Canada, and working hard to get to the positions that they were able to get to, so that I'm here today. I did graduate Merrimack High though, but came back right after to Nashua, and been living here for about 30 years now. 21 years I've been married to my wife, Lauren. We have 3 kids, one in college, one in high school, one in middle school. I've coached youth baseball for 11 years, including 2 years as a board president for Nashua Youth Baseball. So a lot of my work, my career has been in leading people, 25 years in the health insurance call center industry. My last job was at New Hampshire Healthy Families, helping our Medicaid population, some of the neediest population in the city, helping them to get their benefits and making sure that healthcare worked for them. You know, why am I running? To move Nashua forward. Nashua is too divisive right now. There's too many people that are partisan, and we need to move past that. We need to get along. I see it, thank you. Affordable housing, we need to get the commuter rail here so people can get into Boston. People can come here and spend their money. And we got to push Nashua forward and not backwards. We have to give hope to the people that need it in the city, to my ward, Ward 8, and to the rest of the city. We're not just aldermen for our ward. We do have to work for our ward, but at the end of the day, we have to fight for the whole city, because we're going to be voting on things that get brought to us from the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your opening statements. Now we're going to turn to the questions on popular topics that were brought up by voters across the city. Because of tonight's time constraints, we do ask the candidates keep their answers to 1.5 minutes. And once again, I will hold up the yellow paddle when you have 30 seconds left, and the red paddle when your time is up. We may not get to all of the great questions that have been submitted, but we'll give it a try. Because there's 6 of you representing your wards. I'm going to just quickly change my timer, and then we'll get started. The order on this will not be alpha, but a little bit randomized. Okay, so the first person who's going to take a swing at the first question is going to be Ray Guarino. Here's the question. We're going to start with a topic that voters brought up frequently in various forms. Since you will be elected to represent your own ward, you've said eloquently that you're going to represent the whole city, but this question is ward specific. So since you'll be elected to represent your own ward, please tell us about a few issues or goals specific to your ward that you will work on as an alderman. And so again, we'll start with you, Raymond.
Sure, thank you. I think the first issue is coordinating traffic signals on Daniel Webster Highway. There's actually a traffic signal they can probably eliminate at the ramps. We can put a stop sign there. They used to have a stop sign there, but I think we need better, we need to take a look at those signals. We need to get a traffic engineer and look at those traffic signals for better traffic up and down there. And bicycle lanes on Main Street. There's a lane on the southbound, 2 lanes southbound. We could eliminate one and put bicycle lanes there. I'd like to, in fact, motor vehicle safety is something I think we could adopt, something like Vision Zero motor deaths in the city. A lot of cities across the country have been looking at this to make it better for all users, whether you're a walker or a bicyclist or a motorist. The other thing we need is property tax relief. We need to, there's a lot of other issues. There's housing, and I know you've just given me the sign to stop, but I think there's things we need to work on, a property tax relief for the homeowners. And that's not just Ward 7, and also affordable housing. And there's other recreational things we can look at, like more access to the Merrimack River specific to Ward 7.
Thank you. Yeah, the yellow paddle says you still have 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
You timed it perfectly. You timed it absolutely perfectly.
All right.
Okay, so next up on that same question is you, Linda Harriet Gathright. And if you could unmute yourself, please.
Thank you very much. Andrew Park is one of the issues that we've had in Ward 9, and that's the park right off of Harris Road in back of the ball field. And we've been working on that with the city and with Parks and Recreation. All the other parks have been done, and we're next. So hopefully by next summer, we will have a new park in back of called St. Andrews. That's what the park is called. So that's number one. The other one was addressing speeding and noise levels with vehicles. We've had a lot of that, and particularly in the area of Harris Road and Captain's Corner, and a few similar ones right here in the neighborhood where I live, around Marion Lane. So that's a priority for me right now, working with Parks and Recs, as well as the police department, in trying to fix these issues that seem to be arising. And most often, there are the people that live in the neighborhood that are causing those types of things.
Okay, thank you. Next, Derek, will you take that question?
Yeah, sure, thank you. And just to Linda's question or her answer there, it's also sometimes known as Doobie Park, because that's the baseball field there. As a baseball guy, I just wanted to pass that part on. So Ward 8, I went around canvassing, and I talked to a woman named Carol Doobie right off on Middle Dunstable Road. And, one of her concerns was speed bumps. So that road has 3 or 4 speed bumps, and there's signs there, but it's hard to see. And she's saying that cars are going there, and they're hurting their car by going over there, making loud noises. And one of the things I did right away is email DPW and ask them to paint those, because right now they're not even yellow, so you can't see them. So that was one thing I did. And she also mentioned the sidewalk on East Dunstable, which is just all beat up. And it really needs to be fixed. East Dunstable is a dangerous road, and I'm walking back and forth trying to canvass and wondering if I'm going to live. And the sidewalk's just a mess. And so that needs to be fixed. That's a route to school, to Bicentennial, and we need to make sure that kids are walking there safely. Ward 8 is really about the sidewalks, the streets, the speeding. I sat down with the chief of police. That was one of the things he said Ward 8 had an issue with, was speeding. So we got to try to make sure that people go slower. Lots of young kids there. So that's kind of my things real quick.
Thank you. Okay, next, Chris Parks.
We've already kind of talked about how people need to start looking at, not being partisan and looking at ideas. I actually agree with Derek on almost everything he said, right? Ward 8 is filled with hills, all right? And with those hills, one of the constant comments I get is a speeding problem, all right? And not only is it filled with hills, but it's filled with a lot of children, a lot of kids that are going to walk into Bicentennial that are out playing. So, I mean, as a father of 4 and 1-year-old, it's a concern. I've heard it from several constituents over the last 2 or 3 weeks. The other thing that he touched on too was the paving of East Dunstable. Well, when they paved it, while they did a great job with the actual road itself, they didn't tie it into the side streets, and they didn't tie it into the driveways. So, for one, as you're going down the sidewalk, if you are in some sort of wheelchair, if you're disabled, good luck, because there's no way you're getting through there safely. The other thing, I talked to a constituent that said he wanted to actually repave his driveway, but he can't, and he's run out of time because winter's coming. So he's got to wait till the city does what they're supposed to do before he can do it. And the final one that I've heard from our constituents is they're absolutely against the takeover of what the mayor's trying to do with the police commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, John Sullivan.
Thank you, Kate. Since I've announced my running for alderman, I've probably knocked on about 300 plus doors here in Ward 9. And, you know, I've walked on the sidewalks, they need attention. Obviously the parks need attention. The middle school is coming to Ward 9. And that's something that we need to address. But a lot of the things that I just mentioned cost money. Here's something that doesn't cost money. And here's something, and the main reason why I'm running, and that's to represent Ward 9. A lot of the citizens here don't feel represented. And running a ward meeting doesn't cost money. Returning emails doesn't cost money. And returning phone calls doesn't cost money. Those are things that I'm going to do for Ward 9. Bring them back to the table. Hear what they need to be brought to City Hall. Call them back. Email them back. Communicate with them. That costs zero money to the taxpayers. And that's something that needs to be done. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And John, Kathy, please. And you, yeah, unmute.
Thank you. Some of the key focuses or key areas of improvement in Ward 7 are, if you live in the South Main Street area, there are loud cars that drag race on DW from the Toyota dealership down to the exit where Hayward's is. And so we definitely need to beef up police presence, and we need to drastically reduce that because it's all hours of the night, keeps people up. And sometimes it's better than others, but there just seems to be no end in sight. Also, speeding cars on South Main Street from Riviera to Veterans Drive. There was actually a car that was speeding so fast that it clipped a telephone pole and almost killed some kids that were playing in a yard. So the speeding both on DW and South Main needs to be drastically reduced. Also, some other issues are the wastewater treatment facility, which sits in Ward 7. Right now it's fine, but some years ago it was not being maintained well, and so the city put a lot of energy into maintaining it, and we just need to keep that up because we need wastewater for our ward and for the entire city, so we need to make sure that upkeep is kept up. And then also the last thing would be more economic development in Pheasant Lane Mall and the strip malls. There are a lot of places that are becoming vacant, and we need to encourage more business growth for south of Nashua and Ward 7.
Great, thank you all very much. That was question 1. And it segues, some of your answers segue into question 2. The other most popular topic among voters was public safety. So what are your top priorities related to policing or other public safety functions? Public safety. So we're starting with you, Linda, Harriet, Gathright, for this question, please.
Currently, today, I worked directly with National Community Conversation on Race and Justice, and myself and Chief Kerrigan co-chair that organization, that group. And there are people from all over the city that's a part of that group. And that group was to bridge that gap between particularly people of color and the police department. Like I said, I've been here since '79, and I raised 4 or 5 children here, currently have 13 grandchildren here, and they've come through the public school system, through the colleges, and so on. And they have experienced, not just my family, but many families have spoken of the experience that they've had, and particularly of color. So it was great under the leadership of previous chief of police that decided that we want to work with the community to bring all the communities together, not just one community, but all communities together. So with that said, my work speaks for itself, for the work that I do, not just here, but also at the State House in terms of what's needed to keep our city safe from everyone, whether it's guns, whatever it might be, whether it's racism, whatever it might be. We work very tirelessly to keep our city safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Chris Parks.
So, you know, I grew up in Birmingham. For one, thank you for the question. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a while. I've lived in Northern and Southern California. And we moved here from Sacramento. You know, when it comes to the public safety of Nashua, I have the utmost confidence in the police. And I can tell you all, as someone who's lived in a bunch of different places in major cities, we are very fortunate with the community that we live in Nashua right now, as far as public safety and everything. Now, can we always look at ways to improve? Absolutely. We should always be looking at ways to improve. But I do think that we need to acknowledge that we're very blessed with the police department that we have. You know, when it gets to public safety, I go back to my previous answer. You know, some of the things of public safety that we need to worry about in my ward and really across the city, according to everyone that's spoken tonight, in all 3 hours, seems to be speeding. That seems to be a common thread that I've heard throughout the evening. So when we're talking about public safety, I think that's something that we need to work on, and it's something that we need to address. And we need to address that with asking the community, getting the community's involvement, all different communities. But we also need to ask the police, because in my opinion, they are the subject matter experts. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next on that question, John Sullivan.
Thank you very much. When it comes to public safety, it really is, you know, if we don't have that, nothing else matters. And, you know, I think that when it comes to our police, fire, first responders, we have to make sure that they are well funded and taken care of. I want to say this right up front, because I don't know the rest of the questions that are going to come tonight. If you care about public safety, there's going to be a question on the ballot on November 2nd about changing the police commission. Vote no on that question if you care about policing in this city. Keep politics out of our police department. It's all the time I need for that one. Thank you.
Thank you. So next is Derek Tebow.
Sure. Like I said on the previous question, after I announced that I was running, I met with Chief Kerrigan. I wanted to know what his thoughts are on obviously the ballot question, but also, you know, what he thought about our ward and what I had to worry about. And again, you know, came up speeding was the big deal, which is hard to police because, you know, there's other things that are more important in some ways. They have to respond to some violent incident somewhere downtown or somewhere else in the city. It takes away from being able to look at speeding. But, you know, my ward goes to other parts of the city. So it's important that the whole city is safe. And, you know, they're down, I think, 14 officers right now. That's got to be solved. We got to make sure that the police is staffed properly. It's in the budget. So we just got to hire them. In talking to Chief Kerrigan, they've done lots of cool training to make officers better able to handle tough situations. And so, you know, I think I have faith in Chief Kerrigan right now. I think we have a great police. I think everybody thinks we have a great police force that do a great job. I think some of the work people are doing to have community work with the police, I think is a great thing as well, because we have to have that. We have to support all the people in Nashua, not, you know, not just I don't want to say white people, but I'm going to say it, white people. We want to support everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what religion or race they are. So thank you.
Thank you. John Cathy.
Thanks. That's certainly an important question that needs to be addressed in any city. I have lived in various cities around the country, most notably New York and LA, and Nashua by far is above those cities when it comes to public safety. Now, granted, those cities are much larger, but Nashua does a really great job of taking care of its citizens. Our police department is one of the best rated in the nation. They got a perfect assessment from their accreditation organization that they belonged to some years ago. We were voted one of the best places to live in America. We were voted one of the best safest cities to live in America. So Nashua has a lot going on when it comes to public safety. We do a really good job. We also have one of the lowest violent crime rates in America. So Nashua's, by and large, a safe city, a very safe city to live in. And so, yeah, we can always improve. We can always make our police and our fire better. So what do? We equip them, we train them, make sure they have the allocations of money and resources that they need. And we speak to the community whenever there are issues, and we address them as a community, and we come up with positive solutions. But by and large, the police and fire have done a wonderful job taking care of us.
Thank you. And last on this question, Raymond Guarino.
Yes. I think Chief Kerrigan should be commended, as well as the Nashua Police. I think they do a great job. I do think that professional development is needed in not just Nashua Police, but I think a lot of police departments, as far as social awareness and dealing with people with mental health. I think all police departments could use professional development in that area. I do not believe that this question on the ballot regarding the police commission is a referendum on how good or bad our police are doing. It's not a referendum on the police. It's really about local control. And I'm going to vote yes on that, because it brings people closer to making their own choices. And that's what we have a tradition in New Hampshire of doing that. You know, we have one of the largest state legislatures in the country. We have close representation, and I think that's what it's really all about. But this was about public safety and speeding. There's engineering that we can do to help traffic calming. We have that up on Spring Street near St. Patrick's Church. Enforcement is part of it, as well as engineering. And I think we have to be smarter when we do developments, because if you take a look at Daniel Webster Highway, we have a lot of residential areas in a commercial area, but you can't really walk around there. It's very dangerous. So if you talk about public safety, you know, that's very important also. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to question 3. Again, it's looping into some issues that you all have already touched upon. But here it goes. Okay, in the order, Chris Parks, you're going to be starting with this one. Okay. We got several questions about affordable housing, homelessness, and the virtual impossibility of affording rent in Nashua when making the minimum wage. What ideas do you have to help alleviate these interrelated problems? Okay, Chris, you start.
Right. Thank you for the question. So, you know, as I listened all night long and I've thought a lot about this. One of the things that I think about when we talk about affordable housing is, you know, what really defines affordable. Now, I had some members of my church that they left, they came back, young married couple, and they're having trouble finding a place to live in Nashville. You know, so I understand the challenges. What I would also ask is, what are we doing to encourage businesses that pay higher wages to come here? So a lot of the housing market is outside of the control of what the Board of Aldermen, what the mayor can really impact, what we can really affect. You know, there's only so much that we can do at the local level to affect the housing market. But I think what we can do is we can set an environment where businesses that pay more are encouraged to come here. And in the market that we're in right now, wages are going up drastically, but the cost of living is going up. It's a direct relationship, and that's way above our level. But what I do think we can do is we can set the environment where those businesses that pay more come here, and then we set programs and allow for things and encourage people in the local area to take advantage of a lot of the trade schools that we have. We have a great trade school program, and we need to do things to encourage people to enter those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, John Sullivan.
Thank you. Affordable housing is a big issue this year. And when I'm elected, I'm going to ask questions. I'd like to know the inventory that we have. I'd like to know the inventory that we need. I think getting together, the public-private partnership that is really valuable, especially here in the city, but also go to the statewide to help us, get more affordable housing online. I think the other thing that we should look at as well is, and this is one of the things that I'm running on, which is balance across the city. We have a lot of focus on downtown. Why aren't we looking more at DW Highway? Why aren't we looking more at Amherst Street? There's a lot of space down there. And in case people haven't been paying attention, big box retail might not be the future of our economy, especially here in Nashua. Perhaps as an alderman and at city leadership, we can start looking at mixed use land where we can make apartments where retail now sits and remake those part of the city that bring younger people there, that bring people that are looking to get into Nashua. So that's something that I would look at, our current inventory and then what we can do with the land that we have. Thanks.
Thank you. Derek, you're next.
Thank you. So a couple things on this one. So things I worry about with affordable housing, I know I read something that said maybe the Layton house is going to be sold. And I know there's people that are living in there now that, and that's up on Library Hill. And I would hate to see that taken away and those people thrown out because they just won't be able to afford other housing in Nashua. Another thing, Rabbi Spirit Savitt of Temple Beth Abraham reached out to me to ask me to support a pledge that he's working on with the Interfaith Committee to bring 2,000 new units of affordable housing within the next 10 years. So that's something I want to look at before I sign off on it, but sounds like a pretty good thing to do. And I know the rabbi, he's a good guy. So I'm assuming that he's doing that with good faith. The other thing too, really, I met with a constituent, her name was Lisa Quinto, and she told me that they had moved here from Lawrence years ago because Lawrence had just crumbled. And they love Nashua and they're seeing these empty storefronts and they're seeing these, you go down Amherst Street, you go down DW Highway, everything is hiring. Every single small business, retail, everything. We got to get people into those jobs to stimulate the economy, to start to get people into housing. It's all that together. It's all part of it. And I think, John talked a little bit about it as well. We've got to get some of this done. I look at Amherst Street and see where Building 19 was and say, why aren't we doing something with that? So thank you.
Thank you. John, Kathy.
Thanks. This is also an important question, has come up quite a bit, and I've actually given it a lot of thought. First, I'd like to challenge the premise of the question that it seems to imply that there are a lot of minimum wage jobs in Nashua. I don't see that happening. I see a lot of jobs, even at McDonald's, Target, that are $15, $15.50 an hour. There's not a lot of $7.25 an hour jobs. That's first. So the wages are going up, and particularly in Nashua, the wages are across the board going up, and for most businesses have climbed pretty steadily in the last couple of years. Secondly, I'm a proponent of public-private partnerships and mixed use, like John Sullivan talked about. I'd love to see maybe Elm Street or some other building like that, an older building that's cheaper than building a new building. Let's renovate it. Let's put apartments on top. Let's put businesses down below. Let's make some of those businesses places that can train employees to better their lives, that can offer more opportunities, better opportunities, maybe put a daycare in there. I don't know. There's lots of different options for mixed use space to help people climb the socioeconomic ladder. I'd love for Nashua to create an initiative called Live, Work, Grow, and Thrive, and really challenge Nashua to be a place where people can live here, work here, grow here, and thrive here. And we only do that through tackling these problems, and I would say bringing on more business growth and development so we can hire those people and keep those people in the city and help them to prosper throughout their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Raymond Guarino.
Sure. we have lots of residential areas on Daniel Webster Highway, mixed use with commercial, but they basically live in an island because they have to take their car everywhere they go. So I think mixed use zoning is actually a good idea, which previous people said, but we have to connect it with transportation. We have to offer people options. You can't walk anywhere from where you live if you live on Daniel Webster Highway. You got to take your car. You can't take a bicycle, and you do have transit, but we have to look at commuter rail to Nashua, and that brings us to state and federal level. We need state and federal help with affordable housing because we need the infrastructure to support mixed use development, and we also have to clean up our brownfields. I don't think there's much going on with that. We have we have a lot of land that's available, but we can't use it. If we clean it up, we can. So we need state and federal help. Yes, we do have to look at zoning, mixed use zoning, but we also have to look at the infrastructure and connect with our transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and lastly, it comes to you, Linda, this question. So unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. We have currently in Nashua a Director of Economic Development, Tim Cummings, and he's done a lot of work on locating the proper places that we can add more homes or more buildings in terms of housing. We also have within the city, Sarah Marchand, who is also a director, and she assists those families that are having issues in terms of finances. So the city does a lot in terms of assisting people that have financial issues in terms of either on their taxes or even in their, during this COVID situation where a lot of people not working or working part-time or something of that sort. The city has done an awful lot and still is doing an awful lot to help those folks. And those folks that need the housing situation, I don't know if you are aware, but Brownstein is being redone, and that's by the Housing Authority. We have another building that's going to be renovated not too far from there, another section of the city where there's going to be a development of housing. So there's a lot going on in the city that you might not be aware of. And I know that Northeastern Boulevard has been looked at on the other side of the street, not on the side where the homes are, because I had a constituent recently that had contacted me. She was concerned that we were going to do something when on this side of Northeastern Boulevard where I live and where Mr. Sullivan lives, those are homes, basically. So I say that to say that thank you very much.
Thank you. Your time is up. I apologize.
It's okay.
All right. We're going to do one kind of almost a lightning round question, a minute tops to answer it. And this was a chance for a question that was directed specifically to each ward group, the 6 o'clock group, the 7 o'clock group, the 8 o'clock group. And the first person to answer it is going to be Derek. And again, I think this will go pretty quickly and then we'll go to the 1 minute closing statement. So here's the question. Would you support a citywide composting program to reduce our carbon footprint and reduce food waste in the landfill? Derek first.
In theory, yes, but I would need to see cost and all that. I mean, we got to watch spending. We just got to look at the budget. We got to be careful. We don't want to go over the cap, and we can't go over the cap. And in theory, it's a great idea, but I really would like to make sure it made sense with money. I don't want to overspend.
Okay, thank you. Linda, would you answer that question next?
I would think it's possible. And I say that because there's, even for any of that, there's funding, there's grants, there's federal funding and those types of things that help with that. so that the city would not be bearing most of the costs. So it's a possibility, but I would agree that, you know, it's something you would have to look at financially and see what you can receive outside of the city.
Great, thank you. And Chris Parks.
So, I mean, I would have to look at the cost. I actually know a little bit about this. I work for a food packaging company, and the big hot topic right now is sustainable packaging, environmentally friendly packaging. I can tell you right now that there has been municipalities across the United States that have tried it, and it hasn't worked. Part of it has to do with education of the citizens. And they think, oh, it's composting. I can just throw the compostable stuff in with the trash. Well, it doesn't work that way. So for one, you have the issue of how people and getting people to do it properly. The second thing is the cost, is that it winds up not being feasible. So there's been multiple municipalities across the country. I'm not saying that, you know, it shouldn't be looked at. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done. And, you know, we have a lot of smart people in our community. Perhaps we should, you know, investigate it and find if there's a way, but it has to make financial sense. And we have to make sure that it's something that's going to be beneficial and feasible, not a waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you. John Sullivan.
Yeah, I'd look at it as a possibility. I think, you know, it's a nice tactic. Climate change, you know, I think we need to do strategic things, and climate change begins with, you know, you mentioned the carbon footprint. The one thing that reduces the carbon footprint the most is density. Density in our cities. The way that we're built in Nashua is we're very spread out. You know, we have to start thinking ahead to the next generation. We have to look at how do we make parts of our city more walkable? How do we make them more dense in order to allow people that they can walk to a supermarket, or they can walk to a gym, or to a store. So those are the things that we need to look at. I think the composting is great. It's a nice tactic, but we have to think strategically. Thanks.
Thank you. Raymond.
Yes, I think other towns have done it. I have seen other towns that have composted, and it's good if you're a gardener. You get topsoil. You can go get the topsoil as a result of all the composting. I actually compost myself. I have a garden, and I compost leaves and food scraps, and I have a little sub pod, and I let the worms do the job and make topsoil. So I think it's a good idea, and I think, like other people have said, you know, we have to make it work financially. Other towns have made it work. So I think we have to look at what they've done, and maybe we can do the same. But every little bit matters. Every little bit counts. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, and John, Kathy.
I'd like to echo the sentiment of the other candidates who are running. I definitely look at it. It does come down to cost and second and third order effects. Can we educate the public enough to where they're doing it? What's it going to cost the citizens or the taxpayers? Is it going to be an effective program that will help us, or are there other strategic things we can do that would be more beneficial? It just depends on the specificity of what the ordinance would be, or whatever program we're implementing. It's really kind of a broad question. In theory, yes, but a lot of theories are good in theory, but not good in practice. So we'd have to take a good look at it, but it's definitely something that we can put on the table and examine for sure.
Great, everybody. Thank you so much for taking your time with all of those questions. You packed in a lot of data in your minute and a half possibilities. So that brings us to your closing statements. You're going to get 1 minute for those, and reverse alpha order means Derek Thibault, you go first.
Great, thank you. Again, thanks to the League of Women Voters, thanks to the National Public Library, my family, my friends, all my supporters, and all you guys that participated today. I think it was a great conversation. You know, I run for Ward 8 Alderman for the city and the ward that I love. You know, people online have been here 5, 6, 7 years, and they come in and they think this is a terrible city, and they call us names. It's a dump, it's a ghetto. Nashua's far from a ghetto. People haven't been in a ghetto if they think Nashua's one. We're the fourth best city in the U.S. I mean, fourth best well-run city. That says a ton. And I'm glad to live here. You know, we see neo-Nazis and Proud Boys go to our BOE. Nashua is a compassionate city. It's a thoughtful city. We must try to push the hate out. I won't let people down. I'll make sure that, you know, I'm listening and doing everything I can. Vote for Tebow on 11-2. It's up to you, Ward 8. Thank you.
Thank you. John Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Kate. Nice job tonight. And those of you that tuned in, I just realized that we're up against the Red Sox-Yankees game. So anyway, thanks everybody. I want to thank Linda Gathright for her service to the city. No matter the result of the election, I do look forward to a good race on November 2nd. To those of you in Ward 9 tonight, I'm running for you. Better communication, more access to leadership, and an open pipeline to get what you care about into the aldermanic chamber. You matter to me, and that's why I'm running. I'm also an independent, and that's great because this is a nonpartisan election. I don't know if you knew this, but 46% of the voters in Ward 9 are independent. They're the same as me. Independent, free thinkers that want someone who doesn't follow a partisan playbook and look only to promote a big agenda. This is your chance to get big party politics out of Nashua once and for all. Vote for common sense. Vote for real solutions. Vote for John Sullivan in Ward 9 on November 2nd. Thanks. And go Red Sox.
Thank you. Okay, Chris Parks.
You know, I'd like to start off by thanking the League of Women Voters in the National Public Library, but I'd also like to thank my wife, Elizabeth, for supporting me, my two boys, Patrick Jr. and Luke. You know, I'm running for alderman because I want to provide common sense decision-making that's based on reason and logic. I'm here to listen to the residents of Ward 8, and I want to work for them. They're the ones that matter. And just like them, I have kind of felt like I haven't mattered over the last 12 months. I don't care what somebody's political leanings are. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. It doesn't matter. I'm much more of a free thinker than anything as well. And you can find out more about me at parksfornashua.com. You can also check out my Facebook page and my Instagram that my wife created a couple nights ago. I think they're up right now. I'd have to check with Zuckerberg, but yeah, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and have a good night. Go Sox.
Thank you. Linda, Harriet, Gathright. Unmute, please.
I want to say that when I first ran for Board of Aldermen, because this is my second term that I'm in right now, one of the pledges I made is to return emails and phone calls. I am diligent about that, whereas my predecessor did not do that. So with my constituents that I've knocked on doors and those that have called me over and over again, Linda, do this, Linda, do that, Linda, come bring your sign, do this, do that. It's really exciting because I realized that they realize that I have been working for them as well, but not just here in Nashua, Ward 9, but across the city. So with that said, continue to reach out to me for anything that you want to talk about. I am open, I'm extremely busy, but I do return calls. And I do have a great relationship with the majority of my constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Raymond?
Sure. We all have individual liberties and personal freedoms that government must observe. But without local government providing necessary services, it is very difficult to exercise these liberties on our own. How can we fulfill our liberties without clean water, without sewers, without transportation, without education, without fire protection, without police protection? So I believe the most important thing a local official can do is listen to all sides. It's important to find common ground and then act so that people with differing views can at least agree upon some things and move forward. I believe in the democratic process, which is to bring the facts, evidence, and proof to move people and gain consensus. I'm willing to move my position on issues if presented with new information, but I hold core convictions that I will not compromise my principles on fairness and equality. I believe in local government that residents can trust, And in the tradition of Alderwoman June Carone, I hope I can do as good a job as she has done in the past 10 years. So I ask the people of Ward 7 for their vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, John, Kathy. Unmute yourself, please.
All right, I had a little problem with my mouse. Okay. I want to first thank the League of Women Voters and the Nashua Public Library. This has been a great experience. It's been really enjoyable, and I was happy to answer all the questions. I'd like to point out that Nashua is a great city to live in, but with rising property taxes and wasteful spending, we will lose our path to continued prosperity. We need to have voices in City Hall that are going to put taxpayers first and make sure that money is being spent appropriately and that we are getting the return on the investment that we are spending. Like John, I'm also an independent. I will advocate for solutions that are best, not the solutions that come from the people that I agree with. I'm a pragmatic moderate who will listen to the voters and advocate for policies like better taxes, stronger fiscal discipline, and better economic development. I'd like to thank June for all of her years of service, and I'd like to thank my family for supporting me. Nashua Ward 7, this is your city. Let's work together to create a Nashua where you can live, work, grow, and thrive. Vote for me.
Thank you all so much. And it's just exactly 9 o'clock. Carol, take it away, close us out. Thank you so much for running. Thank you so much for staying up this late. Thank you to all the people who are participating in all the different ways they're participating. I'm finding this whole, visit to your city impressive. So I really want to thank you for letting me be part of it.
Thank you, Kate, for moderating, and thank you to all the candidates who came tonight and everyone in the audience. I just want to remind you that our Board of Ed forum is on Thursday, October 21st at 6:30 p.m. There's a link in the chat to sign up for that and submit questions. It's tinyurl.com/NPL forum. And also check out vote411.org. That's a League of Women Voters website where they have information on local voting laws and elections. And soon there will be information about this year's national candidates. So thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
Thanks. Thanks again. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I should also thank Local Access TV for recording.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. So I guess the four of us will talk in the next week or so about the 21st.
Yep, and actually, we'll talk with Edith.
Right. Sorry. Right. Thank you, Kate. Thank you for doing it too.
Thanks, Liza.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Good night.
Okay. Thanks. Good night.
Be in touch.
Yep.